Hello, I'm Mike Grottecelli, Editor-in-Chief of HD Camera Guide, here today with Steve Schklair, CEO of Ality Digital, which has really been at the pioneering front of 3D technology. Steve, we've seen a big explosion this year of 3D from throughout the industry. Last year was kind of almost a luxury or whatnot, but this year we've seen 1 million companies get involved. Is that good for the industry?
Well, it is an industry. Let's start there. Last year might not have been an industry. Now it's turning into an industry, which, thankfully for us, it is, because we kind of bet the farm on the fact that 3D would be the future of media. So I'm glad to see it go from an experiment to an industry.
Great, but does that kind of water down things for you as opposed to all of a sudden now if I'm a server company, I'm a 3D server company now, that kind of thing where the message is getting...
No, the message, the more it's emphasized by all the sectors, the better it is for us, the more mainstream it becomes, even the more competitors we get. It's not an industry if you stand alone. It's only an industry if there's a lot of competition, then it becomes an industry.
Great. Speaking about competitors, we see a lot of pieces of equipment all over the place, from big cameras with 2/3-inch sensors to smaller ones. At HD Camera Guide, we espouse always that quality count. It's important to have high quality. With 3D, is that certainly the case as well? In other words, do I want to shoot with a 1/4-inch camera? Is that going to get me good 3D?
It'll get you good 3D. It might not get you good image quality, because in 2D or 3D, the issues don't change. The very small sensors have a certain image quality. It's baked in. That's physics. It can't be violated. They also, with the very, very small cameras, the lenses aren't, say, as crisp and sharp and with as many of the proper coatings as some of the bigger lenses for the 2/3-inch sensors or even the even larger sensors. So it's always about, certainly, it depends on the project. Image quality is key, but there are certain projects that benefit from the size and portability of the smaller cameras, where the option is either use a smaller camera so you don't get your show at all. So every camera does have its purpose.
Great. The area of education is something that's really important right now in 3D, and people are watching your company because you're at the forefront of, you've done hockey broadcasts, football broadcasts, all kinds of things, and you've become like almost a teaching kind of thing. Where do people go for education is what I'm getting at here, if they want to shoot something and they have no idea, they're starting from scratch?
So you go to www.realitydigital.com, and there is a section about education. We offer an education program. I know USC is starting a 3D education program. Some of the other universities, certainly if you're in college, are starting to offer 3D education, and most of them are talking to us to get curriculum materials and some of the training, because, again, it's not voodoo to shoot 3D, but without education, it's just the vast unknown. Once you know a lot about it, you find there's really only a few basic principles, and the rest is fairly easy, or just a lot of common sense, or a knowledge of digital imaging. It just goes it's just that basic.
It is that basic.
If you are really good at 2D digital imaging, the transition to 3D will not be difficult.
Okay, because that was my next question, was the differences in 2D versus 3D, and crew sizes certainly have to increase, and things like a stereographer is a new position being created.
Yeah, but on a crew of 50 people, if you add 2 to 3 more people for the 3D crew, you're not, it starts to become a rounding error. Just so, again, it's project dependent. Right. If it's a 2-person documentary, then odds are you're not going to add 2 more people, because now you've doubled your crew. But what you would do is train that 2-person crew so they could do it themselves. Okay. So again, it boils down to education, teaching, practice, and experience.
Great. I want to talk about, we're standing in front of a beam splitter type technology that's produced by Ality Digital, but there are 2 types, obviously. Beam
that
splitter,
was Vanna White.
the beam splitter and side-by-side. That's the 2 different types that are now currently being used. Explain the differences.
A beam splitter, and if you could see this camera, there's one camera shooting straight down, which obviously is not shooting a shot at a floor. It's shooting into a mirror, and if there's enough light for that camera to see, you can see there's actually 2 lenses overlapped in this mirror. There's a camera behind shooting through. There's a camera on the top reflecting down. This lets us put our lenses closer together than we could on a side-by-side rig, where they bump into each other, and then the laws of physics being what they are, that's as tight as they can get. This lets us get a virtual lens position, so we can get an overlap down to complete overlap of the 2 lenses. Why this is important: if I were shooting a 3D shot of me standing this close to the camera on a side-by-side camera rig, you'd end up with either very diverged backgrounds, meaning the backgrounds are so far separated your eyes turn outward to see them, or even your foregrounds are going to have too much parallax, which is the distance on the screen between the left and right eye objects. By controlling the interaxial distance is how we make 3D comfortable, and then we can also use it for creative reasons. When things are this close, we're going to shoot at a distance like this, which might be, that's maybe 20, 30 millimeters of interaxial distance.
Right.
You can't do that with two professional lenses. They don't come that close.
Okay. Okay.
The side-by-side rigs, we don't let anything come close to those rigs. So we use those for long lenses. We use those when the camera's far away from the subject. In sports, certainly, you know, the slash camera and the high 50 in football, those are side-by-side rigs. So we can take the cameras fairly wide apart and get some triangulated 3D out of the field without miniaturizing everything. So really it just depends on what the purpose is. Most people will carry two types of rigs on a show. The beam splitter, though, is the workhorse because we can actually go wide with it as well.
Great. Can things like for documentary shooting where they want to shoot panoramic views, I'm told it's not so good for 3D. You lose a 3D effect when you're shooting, let's say, the Grand Canyon or something like that.
Well,
how do you get around that?
You don't. You know, when things are that far away, there is no depth to them. If you look at the mountains, they're flat. And when you look at them, even with two eyes, it's a flat plane. There's no stereo other than the normal 2D cues, meaning, you know, there won't be as much color saturation in the distance as there is in the foreground. It'll be a little murkier in the distance because of aerial diffusion. So you have all the 2D clues that tell you the mountains are far away. But in terms of actual stereoscopic, to shoot the mountains and get stereo, you'd need, here's a good example. There was a beautiful stereoscopic shot of the moon done many years ago. One camera was in Arizona and the other was in California. It got a very nice 3D shot of the moon.
Okay.
So, you know, to get 3D of things that far away, you need an interaxial distance that's just not practical. So for the most part, yes, it is flat. Wide panoramas, the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon looks like a flat painting even when you're standing there.
True.
3D doesn't change that.
Well, can you fix that kind of stuff in post though also, perhaps?
If you want a 3D shot of the Grand Canyon,
Right.
you would shoot it in 2D and convert it
Right.
to 3D. But it would look unnatural if you did, because when you're there in person, there is no depth. It's very flat. Sure, there's depth to the pinnacle you're standing on, to the far wall. So if you want to shoot a stereo shot of that panorama, you have to put something in the foreground because there will be depth on that and it will appear in front of that flat plane of the background.
Good, good, good. A little bit about consumer technology, if you don't mind, because we're talking about 3D to the home at some point. A lot of televisions now coming on the market, which is exciting, but a lot of the glasses that are used with those are not compatible. How do we get around those issues of incompatibility with the things like the glasses?
You give the industry some time. You know, it's a very nascent industry right now. There are the usual growing pains as there are with any new technology. Every manufacturer wants their technologies to be the standard, so you're going to see a lot of competing technologies hit the market, some of it compatible, some of it incompatible. Eventually, the best technology wins. Well, I can't even say that because there have been cases in technology where the best technology didn't win.
Right.
The technology with the most content won.
Okay.
So it always boils down to the same. Content is king. So will there be one pair of glasses that works on every set? Possibly in the future, most likely.
But
you know, it's good for the industry.
Doesn't it need to be one glasses that works with?
There needs to be at some point in the future, yes. Right now, you have everybody scrabbling for their piece of the pie. And so you won't find that level of compatibility on all the new products yet. But eventually the industry matures, it grows up, there becomes more compatibility because one product outsells the other one by 1,000 to 1, and then everybody decides, okay, there's the standard. You know, it's the default standard theory.
Gotcha, gotcha. You've been talking about the CEA numbers. They're saying perhaps as much as 4,000 sets will be sold this year alone. Do you believe those numbers?
I think that was 4 million.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 million. That's right. Do you believe those numbers?
You know, the CEA predictions have been fairly accurate for many years, so because they come from the CEA, yes, I actually believe those numbers.
Okay.
You know, and it projected out to 64 million, and I forget what year it was way out there in the future. But yeah, I believe those numbers. As more and more content comes online, you'll see a conversion to those sets. You'll also see the set price drop. You know, again, quantity lowers price, so that more and more people have access to that technology. But when your favorite sports team starts appearing on your cable system or your satellite system in 3D, you're going to be pretty tempted to go out and get a set.
Great. What about things like news? Are we ever going to see 3D news?
Yeah, sure, you'll see 3D news because when color first came in, it was like, okay, it's great for name your film, Ryan's Daughter, but Lawrence of Arabia, but who's going to want to watch news in color?
Right. Well, it's funny we said that about HD too, right? Who
wants to watch? That's right. I do remember that. People would say, who wants to watch news in HD? Who cares? Right. Well, at the end of the day, if you have an HD set, you're going to watch your news in HD because you're used to it. The beautiful thing about 3D is most of the remotes have a button on it that lets you switch from 2D to 3D. Mm-hmm. So you have your choice. You could choose to watch it in 3D. If it's not shot in 3D, you don't get that choice. But if the cost of shooting 3D is very similar to the cost of shooting 2D, then why wouldn't you shoot it in 3D and let the consumers make their choice?
Great, great. And the last thing is this is kind of a cliche thing, but is this the year of 3D when it's finally being accepted, so to speak, or are we still, or at the beginning of, and can we compare it to the beginning of HD, where perhaps, things were trying to be figured out, production techniques weren't there yet, things like that?
I don't know if I'd say this is the year of 3D just because I've been doing this for 10 years.
I know you have.
So I'm not sure I'd say this is the year of 3D because I said that last year and the year before, but I'm no longer asked, is this just a fad? Okay. So that's probably the best signpost I could point to.
Great. Well, great, that's it. This has been Steve Schklair with Reality Digital for HDCameraGuide.com. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Cheers.